Hello everybody, I'm Conquering History Games and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you another 10 interesting unlanded characters that you can play in Crusader Kings 2. Once again, we're going to be going in just a chronological order generally, and that these are not all of the interesting unlanded characters that are in the game. Please be sure to go check out my first video about it, and then also... I'm so sorry, and also be prepared for the next one that's going to be coming out, because I do plan on doing at least 3 of these, but I only want to do 10 per video so that the videos are not overly long and discouraging people from watching them. Alright, so for our first interesting unlanded character, you have to go to the 769 bookmark. You're going into the into southern Middle Francia, where you will find Werner in Carcassonne, which is right here, almost at the border with the Umayyads in Iberia. So if you go in here, you will find the founder, in some ways, of the Salian dynasty. So those of you who are more familiar with the 1066 start will know that the dynasty of House Salian is the Holy Roman Emperor, and they go on to have 4 Holy Roman Emperors in a row. So what your goal could be when playing as Werner is to, well, first off, you have to have the Holy Roman Empire formed, which may or may not happen while underneath the Carlings, but the idea would be that you need to set up your dynasty on the throne, and then try to become the Holy Roman Emperor, or found the empire if it has not been done so already, and then see if you can have more than 4 emperors in your dynasty, and if you want that extra challenge, try to do it before 1066, so that you have more emperors in the Salian dynasty before even the first one was done. Historically, it could make for a very interesting campaign. It's totally up to you if you also want to give Werner land to play as him from the 769 start. You could perhaps play as the Count who is above him, Adelard here, or perhaps as King Carlomagne Carling, and just wait until he's of age before you give him the land. It's entirely up to you, but he's a pretty interesting character, and I hope that you will enjoy him. For our second interesting character, we're going to be going over to Asturias in northern Spain. Now, Asturias is at this bookmark ruled by the De Cantabria dynasty. However, if you look at their history, they are not. There was a recent usurpation of King Freolia the Cruel of Asturias, who is actually of House Asturias. It's what the area is named after. His son, Prince Alfonso, is hanging out here in the court of Prince Marigato of Asturias, who is the Count of Astorga, right here, just south of the county capital. And so his half-brother, I should say, did I say son? I'm very sorry if I said that. It was his half-brother, who was King Friola the Cruel, and although he was named the Cruel because he had very fratricidal tendencies, he was still family. So your challenge here will be to recover your family's namesake and become the kings of Asturias once more. Historically, Alfonso was able to find some success because he was working with Charlemagne, so perhaps you can follow his example and do the same. For our third interesting character, you are going to go into the lands of King Sigurd, Snake in the Eye, one of Ragnar Lodbrok's children, and inside his court you will find Uhtred of Belbanburg, who some of you will know as the main character of the Last Kingdom television series, which is based on the Saxon Stories novels. He can either be a potent part of your army, or you can give him independence and let him, or I should say, you could have him become independent and he becomes a potent part of Sigurd's army, or you could grant him some independence and then have him go nuts with a prepared invasion. He has a couple of traits here that he always starts with, including tough soldier, arbitrary, and cynical. I think that is really funny that he is arbitrary. because sort of his character's arc is that he is caught between the Norse and Anglo-Saxon worlds. So I do think that's kind of funny. What you could perhaps do, could be an interesting challenge, is granting him his own county to work with, and seeing if Uhtred can overcome all the sons of Ragnar as well as the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, and instead of having to choose between cultures, managing to do what Canute the Great did early and unite the Danish land as well as that of England. So if you're a fan of the television show or the books, he has been incorporated into Crusader Kings 2, and I thought that you all would enjoy that. For our fourth character, we're still in the year 867, and we're going to be over here in Norway, where you have the county of Nidaros, led by Rognvaldr of Nidaros, whose son is Hrolf Rognvaldr's son. I know I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but he is a 7-year-old boy who is always going to have the strong trait, which is very good, and he is more famously known as Rolo. He is the founder of the Norman dynasty that would eventually spawn William the Conqueror and many other Viking dynasties that had settled down in Europe. Now, you cannot... I'm including him in this unlanded character list because you cannot modify the date before or after 867. So he is technically always unlanded whenever you have the potential to play as him. So you have a couple of options as him. You can, as his father, grant him some independence, or you could just try to carve out some sort of kingdom beforehand and then have him inherit it. You could try to bail out of Scandinavia entirely before Harald Fairhair here absorbs you, like he usually will. You can try and take Normandy and then England, and see if you could do that faster than William the Conqueror did, so try to beat the 1066 deadline. Alternatively, you could take yourself immediately down here to Sicily, like some of the, in southern Italy, like some of Rolar/Hrolfr's other descendants did. By the way, until he's 11 years old, you can change his name, so if you want to call him Rolo, you definitely could do that, change that name. Finally, you could also try to carve out some sort of Crusader state, like you're a descendant to Bohemond did. This could mean that you decided to convert to Catholicism to do that, or you could reform the Germanic faith, in which case you're probably going to have to stick around Scandinavia for at least a little bit, and reform it in such a way that you can then wage holy wars and create some sort of Viking Crusader states, or whatever you would call the equivalent of a Germanic pagan holy war. But he's a fun character who you can definitely create some interesting alternate histories with. And he always comes with a strong trait, which is very, very good. Character number 5 is Allfar of Sedjurjar, which is basically the Kingdom of the Isles that was ruled by the Norse here in northern and some of the islands of the British Isles. But not this Allfar. We are actually going to be looking at a different member of the family. You see, this Allfar, if we look at the family tree, is the great-grandson of Ivar the Boneless, who was himself the child of Ragnar Lodbrok. However, Allfar here has a second cousin, right? Yes, I believe second cousin, also called Allfar here, Allfar Curien Sithric's son, who is a member of his court. He comes with a strong claim on the petty kingdom, so you can land him and then try to have him take over, or if you could have somebody else invite him to their court and then press that claim there after granting him a county or something. He could be, there's a couple of different ways that you can play him. It just depends on if you want to overthrow the kingdom internally or externally, although keep in mind he is only 10 years old. He does have the blood of Ragnar Lodbrok in his blood, of course. Now, historically, this Allfar did manage to become the king not only of the Petty Islands, but also Dublin, as well as Northumbria, which, as you can see at the moment, is currently completely occupied by a united England. Historically, this Ulfar was able to pull this off after King Ethelstan died, because he had a weak successor. As you can see, his successor right now is a minor, Edmund Edwards' son. So you could try to replicate Ulfar's... let's come in here, down to the court. Yeah, this Ulfar's achievements. Our sixth character can actually be rather difficult to find. Right now, we're at the first of the 1066 bookmarks, and we're looking for somebody who is Persian. So what you're going to want to do is just search all, look for Omar, just type in Omar, and then you'll just go through the names. They're going to be listed alphabetically, and here he is, Omar Khayyam, who in this example spawned within Tashkurgan. That's usually where he's going to show up, but I have seen him show up elsewhere. So if we go into the court of this character, we will find him. Now, this man was a Persian poet, mathematician, and philosopher. He's perhaps most famous for his Julali solar calendar. I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but it is an extremely balanced calendar that you should totally look up, and it is actually still used in some places today. Now, his traits are kind of a crapshoot, it seems. So maybe you're going to want to respawn him or something. In this case, he spawned in an area that only has one county, so you can't really grant him independence. What you could do, he is a Persian Sunni, so he is agreeable to a lot of different types of rulers in the area. You could invite him into your kingdom and then grant him a county and then play as him from there. Now, he was very much a religious philosopher, a Muslim religious philosopher, but I think what you definitely have to do, since he was somebody who created this important solar counter, is get your hands on some Zunist holy sites, convert to it, and then bring as much of the world under the religion of the sun as possible. Be warned, though, it being the year 1066, and that there's technically no counties that still follow who are the Zunist religion, so that's why you have to grab one of their holy sites in order to convert. This is definitely a game start that is for masochists, especially because he typically does not have very good stats. This 18 diplomacy is probably the highest that I've seen since I've been checking in on him periodically. But still, if you're into that sort of thing, he could be a whole lot of fun to play as. At number 7, we once again find ourselves in the High Middle Ages start, and where we are going to be looking at Harald's Marshal, Tostig of Godwin. Tostig Godwin's son. Very interesting character. The Benedict Arnold of the Anglo-Saxon world, or perhaps we should say that Benedict Arnold was the Tostig Godwin of the American world. Historically, he worked with the Norwegian invasion force and died alongside Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Godwin's brother was King Harold II of England, and he was helping Hardrada to invade England. So you have a few options here as to how you want to play Tostig, because as I said before, he's a very flexible character. Number 1, you could help him ideally win the war against you can help Harald win the war against England, and then once you have some land in England, form a faction to become independent, and then make yourself the King of England. Alternatively, if Harald loses, you could grant Tostig some sort of land in Norway, and then create a Norwegian branch of the Godwins and attempt to become the King of Norway from within. The third option, which most people might not know about, is you were married to Judith van Vlaanderen, whose father was the Duke of Flanders and whose current sibling is the same. So this gives you a weak claim on the Duchy of Flanders, so you could perhaps press this claim on her behalf and get a hold of this territory, and then use that to eventually maybe become King of France. Or, if you're extremely ambitious, you could just try to get all 3 thrones somehow, some way. But Tostig is certainly an interesting character, and one that I think is not looked at enough when we're talking about unlanded characters of interest in Crusader Kings 2. Character number 8 is of particular interest, and he's kind of a 3 starts for 1 special. Once again, we are still here at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, the excuse me, the High Middle Ages start, where we are right now, Harold II of England. Within your court, you will find, no, not Ethelstane, you will find Edgard Edwards, son of Wessex. If you look inside of his family tree, you will see that he is the final member, the final male member. He has 2 unmarried sisters, which could be useful, but he's the last male of the House of Wessex. So you see all those Wessex kings up here, Ethelred, Edgar, Edmund, and so forth, going all the way back to Edward the Great, the Duke of Wessex, and he had, and his famous ancestors. Incidentally, I've always thought it was weird that Alfred the Great is not the one that gets the bloodline. Instead is Ethelstine. But I sort of understand why that is, because Duke Alfred the Great was technically not the king of England, not the first king of England, though it kind of depends on who you talk to and what you define England as. But that's getting off topic. So if you're here in the 1066 start, and you take and you have Edward here, you'll see that he does have that strong claim on England. Although it's going to be very hard for him to press it, considering right now there are there's essentially 3 nations that are all vying for the throne, and he has nothing. So he does fight as a commander for Harold. You could roleplay this as maybe something where Harold decides to give Edgar some land in return for his assistance in fighting off the Norwegians and the Normans, or you can have Edgar be given land by one of the conquering winners, whether it be Norway or Normandy, and they do that as something like, hey, look, I'm going to keep the House of Wessex close in order to legitimize my claim in some way. This is where the marriage to the sisters can come in, and then he can internally do some sort of upheaval from there. It's definitely a very difficult start, right up there with Canute the Great's grandson, who's down here in Toulouse, but you do have that strong claim, and if worse comes to worse, it will be inherited by your successor. And as a strong claim, you don't have to wait for something like a child to be on the throne before you're able to make your move. But that is not the only way that you can play Edgar, because you can see Edgar here, he's just turned 16, so that's a great age, but he lived a pretty long life. In fact, there are some sources that claim that he lived to be 125 years old. In Crusader Kings 2, he does not live that long. They go with the more accepted date that he died when he was 76. But because he spent much of his life traveling around the world and trying to press his claims and get involved in other struggles in Europe, including the Crusades, you can also find him with his strong claim in other areas of the world, which I will show you now. So the second of 3 places that you can find Edgar of Wessex is in the court of King Malcolm III of Scotland if you go to the 1066 start. Now, to explain the context here, Edgar, after Harold died at the Battle of Hastings, was elected the new King of England. Of course, nobody remembers that because it was never really broadly recognized, and William had just won. It was just one of those formalities before William was officially crowned. So sometimes you'll see reckonings of the history of the kings of England, and Edgar will be included for a 2-month period until William is crowned, but most of the time he's not put in at all because it wasn't very relevant. But because he did feel that he was the proper king of England, he would war against the Normans, and one of the places that he found support was with Malcolm of Scotland, who married his sister here, as you can see. Wait, was this his sister, or I'm thinking of, no, later. I'm pretty sure Malcolm married one of his sisters at some point. Maybe it just hasn't happened yet. In any case, yeah, here's Margaret. I guess they haven't gotten married yet. Anyway, we're getting off track here. The point is, so you could also play as Edgar, being a member of the Scottish nation, and then trying to take back your throne directly against William the Conqueror, who is going to have been consolidating his position during this time, so it could be very difficult to beat him. Maybe you're going to have to, get some sort of alliance with Scotland. Maybe you're going to have to become the King of Scotland just for the sake of, form a faction, just so you can have the strength to take the fight to England. But this is not this is still not the only way that you can play Edgar of Wessex. For this third Edgar scenario, we are now in the year 1099. 33 years have passed since the Battle of Hastings and those wars over the kingship of England. And now we find ourselves, of all places, in the court of Basilios Alexios of the Byzantine Empire. He's pretty deep into his own reign. Him and his wife have already had 8 of the 9 kids that they would have. But if we go into his court, you will now find Edgar of Wessex, who is starting to get up there in years. He's 49 years of age, but he is still unmarried. He still has his traits, which are decent enough, and most importantly of all, he still has his strong claim on the Kingdom of England. Again, there's a couple of different ways that you could play this. You could give him a county, have him press his claim that way. You could play as Alexios first, and then press his claim on England, then tag him over. Or, if you want to imitate Richard Plantagenet, who, even though he was an Englishman, managed to become the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Edgar Edwards' son can decide, you know what? I don't think I want this war-torn island off the coast of Europe. Why do that when I can somehow become the Roman emperor? So you can have Alexios give him some sort of land, start working your way up there, and see if you can create the Roman Empire ruled by House, where is he? The Roman Empire ruled by House Wessex, of all people. And then once you've done that, you can still press your claim on England. And then, hey, look at that, you're on your way to restoring the Roman Empire. But he's definitely a very interesting and a character, and one that definitely merits replayability as him. So I hope that you all enjoy him. For character number 9, we now find ourselves in the year 1282, although you could technically go to the year 1266 in order for this character to be born. This is not somebody who is within the Republic of Pisa, but instead over here in Florence, more commonly known. And if you go here into the court, you will find Dante Alighieri, aka Dante Alighieri, who wrote the famous 3-part Divine Comedy. So he is a terrific character. I've been checking on him over and over, and he always appears to be a mastermind theologian. He will always be a genius. He will always be a poet. He will always be erudite. And then the rest of the traits seem to shift, but those first 4 are pretty good, in particular the genius trait. So unfortunately, you're not allowed to play as Florence itself. I think even if you tag over it, it's still not technically playable, because it's a different sort of city, because it's not a merchant republic, it's just a regular republic. So what you're going to want to do is try to invite Dante to your court, which admittedly can be difficult, so be prepared to restart over and over again. Even if you yourself are Italian and you send him a gift, it's kind of a crapshoot whether he's going to join you or not. So, like I said, you're probably gonna have to do it repeatedly or consul command it so that he's got 100 opinion of you. I have managed to do it as Pisa and as Genoa. One of the things that makes it hard is that because he has such great traits, he's almost always going to be the chancellor or the steward or something for the Republic, which gives him a better opinion of his liege, and so he's very unwilling to join them. But I just would recommend picking any of the whether either you can play as a merchant republic and give him some sort of land or something, and create a new that's not him, and create a new dynasty, the Alighieri family, and then just see what you could do with him. He's got terrific traits. You could, who knows, there could even be a possibility where you play somebody in the Holy Roman Empire, manage to get him into your court, and a couple generations go by and we have Emperor Alighieri on the throne. It's only the year 1282 when he's 16, so you've got a couple of 100 years to make the family an emperor before the game ends. So it's, yeah, he's just a fun guy if you can manage to get him inside of your court. I definitely recommend it. He's somebody different. You know, he's not a conqueror, but he's famous for other reasons. And incidentally, I hate to get off track here, but the Divine Comedy is often, it's this idea where like people think of it as like a Renaissance artwork, but in its way it kind of is. I think his Divine Comedy and his standardization of the Italian language and just everything that came with that is a terrific example, I think, of that. The Black Death is the reason why the Renaissance took a century to happen. It was already in progress, and then it got halted by the Black Death because of the devastation it caused Europe. And so who knows? Like, the world could have progressed that much faster if the Black Death didn't go through Europe. But that's not here. That's neither here nor there. Maybe I'll save talking about that for an Italian states game of some kind. Anyway, let's move on to our final character for this video. Our final character today takes us to the 1337, the latest possible bookmark that you can play in Crusader Kings 2. What you're going to want to do is go down here to the county of Olmütz, enter the court, and then you will find there's two different Jans. You want to specifically go for Jan Prem Illicit. You'll see there's an Opavan Prem Illicit. This is a different branch family. No, this one here, this Jan is the last of the male line of House Prem Illicit in the year 1337. He is a descendant from Boleslav the Cruel, so he's got that historic bloodline going for him. Now, without getting into too much detail, basically this family over the centuries had been rulers of Poland, rulers of Bohemia, as well as additional areas. And as such, as its last male heir, you get a strong claim on the Kingdom of Poland as well as on the Kingdom of Bohemia. So so you have this area and this area that is available to you. There are a couple of different ways that you can play him here, where you could give him land within the Holy Roman Empire, have him take Poland. Maybe you can try to do some sort of independence thing. You could attack Poland, then go Bohemia, or you could try to get Bohemia first and then take Poland. It's whatever you want to do, but as the last male, your goal here is to try to reverse your house's fortunes. And of course, by the way, it is King Casimir the Great who is ruling Poland at this time, so you're going to have to get around him. He also has his own bloodline. He's a descendant of Boleslav the Brave. So see that if you could do that to reverse your house's decline, and then maybe after that, who knows? Black Sea to Baltic Sea? Or maybe Emperor? Who knows? It's totally up to you. But that's my 10 characters for today. I do have at least one more of these videos planned. Please let me know in the comments any other interesting unlanded characters that you think that I should bring up in future videos, in case I haven't thought of them before, or maybe I'm not aware of them. But I hope that you've enjoyed these videos, and I would appreciate feedback on it. Thank you very much. I'm Conquering History Games. Hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy playing with these new people, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.